Hello and welcome back to the Wisdom Factory. We have here an intermediate session between our seasons, it is called. Yeah, we have already had 2 seasons with altogether 27 episodes, and we invite you to go back. One was about wisdom technologies, and the other was about interesting topics. It was our first one. And this single session we offer to you because we want, between the seasons, go ahead a little bit with our mission to bring out new techniques and new wisdom into the world, and also because we wanted to invite again Lawrence Gold. Would you like to talk a little bit about him?
I sure would. You know, this is, by the way, I'm Mark. This is Heidi.
I'm Heidi.
Right. But you can see that on the screen.
Yeah, and we are from the Wisdom Factory, despite of what is written here. This is our website, thepowerofrelationship.com.
Yeah.
There were some little problems to upload the right thing, but you know, we are from the Wisdom Factory.
We are. And we are interested in wisdom technologies, both of the outer kind, hardware, electronics, and digital stuff and that, and inside, the work we do inside ourselves, how to do that. And this is particularly why we are excited to have Lawrence Gold with us tonight, because we have personally experienced, I'm going to talk for myself, though, for the moment, from this technology, which he introduced to us a few months ago. And it confused us. Confused me, excuse me, and I didn't know what was going on because it was such a different approach. It was just a simple speaking to me and asking me to do some extremely simple things, and things changed. You know.
And what has it to do with changing the world? Because our title is What If we could really change the world.
That's right. Yeah, starting with myself, you know, and there's a lot to do there, folks. But it was a method that just kind of bypassed my normal ways of looking at my world, my problems, my internal difficulties, personalities, blah, 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 blah. And you wonder after a bit, well, what was the problem anyway? So, and I invite you all to partake of some of this in your own time, because it's just an amazing technology.
Okay, then we give over to Lawrence.
I think so.
And we have the impression that makes something with us, your technology. But, you know, we have entitled it, What If You Could Change the World? Is it a technology to change the world? Because normally changing the world means you go out and fight for your ideas, try to get a lot of followers, and then try to maybe enter into the political system, change some things, or in your community. This is what we try to change the world, and we have good hope that maybe it will work. So what is your take on it?
Well, it's easiest for me to start this way. It's something like 2 years ago, as I was looking at the world through the view of the news media, newspapers, and online news sources and so forth, I became very distressed at the apparent lack of intelligence of humanity. And it seemed to me that what we all needed to get through this series of converging crises that are besetting the current generations, that the only way we could get through this was through a massive rise of intelligence of the human species. Tall order. I began to wonder, began to ponder in myself, how could that be brought about? How could we possibly provoke a mass rise of intelligence? It can't be done through something you eat, although that's the most common approach to just about everything in the whole world that's advertised for human well-being. Eat this food, take this pill, take this drug, and so forth. But the results have been disappointing, haven't they? And I began to wonder. I had no answers. However, evidently things were percolating in me behind the scenes, because at a certain point I had a sudden insight that put together in me a number of different teaching streams to which I'd been exposed over the years and which I had practiced in my own life. And suddenly it occurred to me that there were 4 intelligence elements that every human being has, and in fact, every living creature has, and that those 4 intelligence elements are attention. You can see how that fits into intelligence. Intention, that's the drive to get things moving in a certain way or to prevent certain things from happening, another aspect of intelligence. Memory, well, that's obviously associated with intelligence. And imagination. The most imaginative people are the most intelligent, especially people, here's a good example, Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs. 3 quick, easy examples of people who had a high capacity for imagination and the ability to exercise an intention relative to what they were imagining, namely to bring it into existence. Those 3 people right away imagined new developments of human culture into existence, and they spread wildly, tremendously throughout world culture, and they indeed have and did change the world. Started with, in each case, one person. One person. This is not obviously the first instance where one person did it. We've got historical figures, some of who are religious figures, likewise, whose own personal development, whose own personal intelligence resulted in gigantic world changes. Gautama Siddhartha Shakyamuni, known as the Buddha, Jesus of Nazareth, Moses, right? Huge Lao Tzu, Confucius, produced huge movements that, even as Lao Tzu himself said, all began with one person. He said it could all begin in me. It's in his book, the Tao Te Ching. So these great changes have typically started with one person and caught on. And in their catching on, they transformed the course of human events. And each of them demonstrated a superior degree of intelligence. They had superior capacity to pay attention, to exercise their intention, to imagine a possibility into existence, and to remember it well enough to be able to carry it out. So that's just a beginning overview of how something that starts small with one person can catch on and can produce huge world changes. I'm using that as an example just to bolster the argument that any one of us, if we exercise our intelligence in the needed ways, can bring about changes that do indeed change the world in a beneficial way. Now, there's more to the game than just that, because what we see of these individuals is mostly external actions. We see their effects on others, we hear what they said, we see what they did. But we're at a juncture in history right now where the external channels of action are pretty well sewn up, pretty well owned by the power structure presently in power, which is creating the gigantic convergence of problems we're experiencing. Those usual courses of action are captured by and controlled by these external forces, these individuals in the power structure. However, there's a new development that's been occurring, I'd say, since the end of the 60s, and then there was a big dormancy period, and now surfacing again, where internal technologies are emerging. And I need to say a little bit more about what I mean by internal technologies. That doesn't involve machines. It doesn't involve anything that someone does to another person. What it really involves is the emerging of new capacities in the individual, the emergence of individuals' intelligences and their gifts, their special, unique abilities that each of us have, but remain more or less dormant unless we do something specific to wake them up and put them into action. But it starts with the internal abilities. Heidi?
Yeah, at this point, I want to welcome a little bit our viewers. There is Christina, there is Margarita, there is Kimberly, there is Monica. Carmen said she would see the replay. There, John Freeman too. And there are other people here, I see it on the number, who haven't shown up yet in the comment stream. Welcome, welcome. And I really hope that you get a good impression of what this technology can do. I mean, we are the testimonial. We don't want to go ahead now, but we will give our testimonial and ask who is in the comment stream to write their testimonial too. What did the working with Lawrence techniques do for you? So if you want to begin to write, I will bring it up later. Okay, over to you again, Lawrence.
Oh, righty, very good. So to recap, the great changes in our world have started generally with one individual who brought their special gifts to bear, and that those gifts always emerge from attention, intention, memory, and imagination, the four basic underpinnings of intelligence that everybody experiences. It's the most common thing there is. However, for the most part, those four functions operate kind of on automatic. People don't generally take them in a hand in themselves and activate them in themselves and experience the fruits or benefits of having done so. I want to take a little side trip right now around the word education, because education is highly relevant to our discussion. Education, the word, comes from two word roots. E means from out of or to draw out, and ducare, which is to draw out. And it refers to the drawing out of an individual's special abilities, their special gifts. This is what the word education means in its true and pure form. However, what passes for education these days isn't much in the way of education. Mostly it's learning of facts, rules, and certain skills of doing things. But the development of attention, intention, memory, and imagination is a secondary side effect at best to the current educational process. It's a hope that the students will pay attention. It's a hope that they will exercise enough intention to do their class projects. It's a hope that they'll remember what they've learned. And it's a hope that they won't exercise too much imagination in class because it distracts from what the teacher has to present. So the educational process isn't much education. It's at best a side effect. As a result, we have the kind of results that we see in today's times, where we have in many countries, I know about the USA, large unemployment and a reluctance of those in power to allow the problems of the past to be solved so that they can deal with the new emerging problems. Instead, they want to solve the same old problems again and again and again, like the fashion industry with its hem up, hem down, loose, tight, and they just cycle through those things with minimal change. like the automobile industry, which manufactures a new model every year, and there's no guarantee that the successes of the previous model, such as a good braking system or good mileage, will be carried from one year to the next. Somehow they don't learn their own lessons and build upon. They want to resolve the same problems again and again and again, instead of handling it and then saying, what is it that we need in the world right now to get solved, and shifting their way of doing business to solve the new problem. Why? Because people are not adequately educated to be able to make that kind of change effectively, smoothly, and gracefully. So what happens is the same problems of the world persist decade after decade after decade, with changes in some quarters, such as the development of the computer. It's gotten faster, right? Gotten more powerful. But the problems that computers are being used to solve are pretty much the same problems. So this is all about the topic of education. And education really has to do at base with the development of our capacity to direct and hold our attention on something, to formulate an intention, something that we want to have happen or that we want to do, to have the imagination resources to come up with new solutions, and memory, which is the storehouse of what we have previously created. So there's a necessary foundation to all education, which is attention, intention, memory, and imagination. Tying this back into changing the world, you can see that if people were much more awakened in those four foundations of intelligence, we would have a world that could keep up with the developments of the crises that inevitably emerge as life goes on. So that's something of the groundwork of how we can change the world, but we're still talking pretty much in terms of external technology. So now I want to get to the underbelly, the underpinnings. You've noticed that some people affect you in ways that make you feel better, and some people affect you in ways that make you feel worse. Some people bring out the best in you. Some people make it difficult for you to come forward with the best in you. Some people have a clarifying effect on your intelligence, and some people just murkify it. And I say some people, I will also say some institutions. Look at the mass entertainment media and see what they're coming out with over the past decade or two. Do they make you feel more intelligent, lighter, more resourceful, more positive? Or do they exploit the emergency mentality that responds whenever there's something negative or dangerous happening, an emergency of some sort, and thereby make you feel worse and you come out of there feeling exhausted? Question: which way is our culture taking us? And notice that the internal life, our internal life, is heavily colored by the external influences. This could be a little bit of a quandary if we have no means of dealing with those effects in ourselves, which tend to accumulate over a lifetime. Moreover, if they accumulate in us when we connect with other people, we have an influence on those other people. We have an influence that can make them feel better or worse. So an entire atmosphere gets formed around the habitual ways that human beings operate. And it's more than just about the mass media or the educational system or the family or social connections. And the reason I say that is because there's evidence that there's another process active behind the scenes that, when pointed out to people, seem familiar, but people don't generally put them together to have a comprehension of what those effects suggest about the process of evolution and creativity. I think it'll be easy to make use of some examples just so that you can make connection with your own life and to get the sense that, yes, there is a behind the scenes process occurring that shows up as the emergence of new behaviors and new abilities and new technologies. You see, I'm saying is that these three emerge from something that is not seen, not recognized, but gives rise to them. Some examples. Let's start with ancient times. Ancient times. There are pyramids at various locations on this planet. I'm just using this as an example of a cultural development here. There are pyramids in Mexico, in China, in the Sahara. I'll leave it at that. I think there's a fourth, but it doesn't come to mind at the moment. But they all have been dated as emerging right about at the same time. Now, isn't it odd to you that these structures emerged or appeared or got built pretty much simultaneously at distances that would completely preclude communication among these different cultures? Doesn't that strike you as a little weird? How about this? People attribute the development of the airplane to the Wright brothers, but in fact, in Europe, there were individuals who had also developed that flight technology right about at the same time. And I'm not even including Leonardo da Vinci, who developed his drawings for flying machines some centuries earlier. I'm just talking about contemporary developments. Same thing with the development of wireless technology, which is to say radio. People give credit to Marconi, but there were other individuals simultaneously who had come up with the same thing. Then there was Edison, who developed alternating current, electrical power transmitted over a distance, and Tesla, who developed a related but different technology. And then there was Westinghouse, direct current. You see, these things occur pretty much simultaneously and seemingly independently. How do you account for that? Isn't that a little strange to you that these things can occur like that? Well, there's an explanation for this. And to make that explanation, I'm going to refer to a certain scientist by the name of Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake, I think, is in Ireland, is he not? Findhorn Foundation is a culture or subculture in which he was instrumental. And Findhorn does very strange things like grow vegetables in sand, which would seem to have no nutritional content, and various other similar kinds of projects. And Sheldrake, over his years of observation, began to wonder how certain things could be done like that. And he conceived the notion of what he termed a morphogenetic field. Morpho means shape. Genetic refers to origin. It refers to the causal influences that shape how life forms develop. And the morphic field is the basis for the explanation of what's been called the 100th monkey effect. And it comes out of research done in the field by zoologists who do nothing but observe the behavior of animals. And on a certain island, there were monkeys, and they were introduced to potatoes. The potatoes come out of the ground covered with dirt. And of course, you'd rather not eat a potato that's covered in dirt. What they discovered by observing is that one monkey came up with the notion of washing the potato. I think it was at seaside, at the shore. And then other monkeys saw that first monkey and began imitating it. Meanwhile, the same zoologists were observing monkeys on other islands. Now, here's another case of a large geographical separation. At a certain point, a sufficient number of monkeys on the first island had adopted the practice of washing the potatoes, and the zoologists on the other islands started seeing mysteriously the same behavior among monkeys on other islands. They named it the 100th monkey effect. I rather doubt it was exactly 100. It was more an indication that when you get a sufficient number of individuals practicing a new behavior, that behavior tends to spring up mysteriously, unaccountably at distances apart. The 100th monkey effect has a correlation in athletics. In, I think it was the 1930s, it was considered impossible for a human being to run a mile in 4 minutes. Then somebody did it. After a while, a few more people did it, and then suddenly there was a rush of individuals who are then capable of running a 4-minute mile. Now, these additional individuals did not engage in doping schemes. It was a spontaneous emergence. Now that the way had been opened, it became somehow mysteriously possible for other individuals to duplicate the breakthrough. There are probably other examples than this. They don't come to mind. What I'm doing is making a point here that there is a field of influence that everybody experiences, but it's, as I said before, behind the scenes. It's not obvious. It's more like the water to a fish. The fish scarcely notices the water and doesn't know that much of the fish, him or herself, is made of water, just as we are, about 70%. We don't notice these things because they are so familiar and they have existed from the beginning of our experience of life that we give them no attention. But these occurrences that I've been describing, the pyramids, the 4-minute mile, the 100th monkey, all point to a similar phenomenon, which is a breakthrough and then the spread of the breakthrough without geographical limitation. New abilities emerging unaccountably because somehow it was time.
Okay, I let you the whole time give your lecture, and I appreciate it very much, but I would like to interfere.
Please do.
Okay. What I understand out of what you are saying, that when we have the possibility to change these morphogenetic fields, then the same changes will happen more or less all over the world. Is that what you are saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I came up with another example. Christian Science, the Church of Religious Science, the I Am teachings, all these things that have to do with affirmations and with the mind's ability to affect one's life. These all emerged right about at the same time. It was the late 1800s. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these developments through the morphic field, morphogenetic field. And what I haven't yet said, well, I have said it, but I haven't focused it in, which is that we can create changes in that field by changing ourselves in certain ways. Just as I pointed to that we each have influence on each other, we affect each other, we cause each other to think and feel and act differently by proximity, by exposure to each other. What we're experiencing through that influence is the effect of the field, the morphic field of that particular individual. So I'm leading up to something. Would you have anything more, Heidi?
No, I wanted to lead over in the work you are doing, in the course we have just finished. It was the beta version of the course, and we have some people here in the room who have participated. Tom, for instance, he says that let me find the comment. I would like to bring it up.
Can you read that?
You can read it.
All right. I enjoy learning from Lawrence Gold. This is Tom says this, and appreciate his clear explanations. But to be honest, the exercises I tried to follow with the tetraseed faculties, intention, memory, and imagination, didn't seem to have any results for me. No perceptible change. Yes.
So I cannot honestly recommend his course based on my personal results. So admittedly, it may be due to insufficient effort on my part. That's not to devaluate for others, however. Okay, and then we have another comment from Margarita, who participated too at the course, and we did too, by the way. And
she says that Lawrence Gold is a master on this gold key release technique. It cleared some items after only 5 minutes of using it, and it never came back. Awesome work indeed. I highly recommend it.
Okay, and in the last show we did, I think we read the letter from Kate. I hope Kate would be here today, but she cannot be here. She only, having done the first, we had invited Lawrence twice in the Wisdom Factory, where he really led some of his practices in public. And Kate has seen that and done it, practiced that, and she has said she has cleared up a lot of family history,
yes,
you can say. And she is so convinced. She is from Czech Republic, and she has begun to translate the practices and to teach it in her mother tongue. So unfortunately, she is not here. Then I think Kimberly is here, and who else is here? I would like to post the link if you want to come into the green room and talk with us. Otherwise, you can always write, but I think writing takes longer than...
She has nice to see some faces.
Kimberly has written something too. It didn't come up yet. Let me see. Here. Wait. Oops.
Kimberly Spate. Yes.
Yeah. You can begin to wait. It is so long. The recommendation is to make short comments and more of them, because they don't go on this window.
They don't fit.
Yeah.
Well, she says, Lawrence's course on the gold key release has been extremely helpful to me. It was a bit complex to get at first, but with practice I can see some of his potential in unlocking my years of stuckness. I have read a great deal on habits and knew
I had unhealthy thought patterns, grooves in my brain that developed after dramatic events in my life. The question I had was, how do I remap these thought patterns and free myself from this stuckness? I see this as a way to do that. I have made progress, and I'm excited to see the possibilities. Now it went away. Here it is. I'm sorry.
And I'm excited.
As I'm able to tap into. Why doesn't it come up? This technology. I'm sorry. It's what it is. You can read it on the. Oh, here. I'm able to tap into previously unused brain power. I'm having less physical pain as my stress levels are declining and my hope is increasing. Thank you, Lawrence. Really great, Kimberly. I'm happy. You were one of the very faithful followers in the course.
You mean it helps to follow the course?
It would help to follow and do a little bit of practice, because when you do it once, it can happen that you have a good experience. Probably when you do it only once, you will feel, oh, what is that, as we did before. And we are doing it with Lawrence since, let's say,
April, I think,
something like that. And I have seen big changes in myself and in this guy here too.
And she notices this stuff,
Yeah, so I see nobody's come in so far. Maybe we find some other comments. Then there were some comments about Sheldrake from Tom. And he gives a link, and then there's also Monica Silvestre Santos
from Brazil.
From Brazil, and she says,
I know Sheldrake by Systemic Constellation of Bert Hellinger. Wonderful, understand the integral world. Are you saying that we can change the world with integral and presence, attention, good intention, learn with the past memories, and imagine and belief the good future?
Oh, this is a question I think, Lawrence, you can address.
Okay.
And then we will talk a little bit what the course exactly did.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, the first thing, as I said in my little rant about education, is that people pretty commonly don't have much of a handle on their own attention, their own intention, their own memory, and their own imagination. It isn't really well developed in most people.
Actually, we often don't even know, came up in the course, what is intention, and and paying attention to attention. How is that? Things like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. So if a person hasn't gotten all four of those faculties online in themselves, and by online I mean they can at will tap into their own sense of attention, their own intention, deliberately create and dissolve memories, and capture imagination as it occurs spontaneously in them. If they don't have those four faculties, they're not going to do very well in general in life. They're going to be misfiring. They're not firing on all four cylinders. It's necessary to get all four of those going, and there are exercises in the course that enliven each of those four functions. The thing is, if a person lets any one of them slide, they're not going to get a proper result. The course brings out a recognition of how we operate in life, meaning that if a person doesn't, say, get all four of those faculties going in the course, if they don't see to it that they have a handle on all four of those, that's an indication that's also how they operate in life. They don't thoroughly see to it that the quantities of their own lives are handled thoroughly and in good order. So that's an admonition for anyone considering doing the course, that if you do the course, you go there to do the action and get the results. And if you don't get the results, you communicate with me and you see to it that you get the coaching needed to be able to get the results. So that's an aside about that. Now, this is building up to responding to Monica's question. It's not just good intention, it's the ability to exercise intention competently at all. It's not just having good attention, but the ability to direct your attention and keep it where you want to have it placed. In general, what happens in these kinds of procedures is a person comes to recognize where there are gaps in their own faculties of intelligence. And as they fill in the gaps, distortions of imagination, that is weird, unserving imagination patterns, get tempered by the other three aspects: attention, memory, and intention. Those three affect the course of imagination. Likewise, any other combination of three affects the course of development of the fourth. All four of them mutually reinforce and mutually clarify. So the change in our presence in the world requires those four faculties to be functioning well in us. And then we do the cleanup, which is, by the way, what the Gold Key release is for, is to clean up the entanglements of old patterns, old memory patterns, old behavior patterns, by making them clear and putting us in the position of control of them. And that doesn't mean suppression of them. It means recognition that we are at the root of them being the way they are, and not just mentally recognizing, but feeling it the way you would feel, say, chewing. You feel it as a voluntary action that you can simply desist from or quit. That leads to a progressive clarification in oneself, getting clearer and clearer and cleaning ourselves up of what I've referred to elsewhere as the barnacles of life. I'm going to use that metaphor for a moment. A barnacle is an animal that connects itself to the underside of a ship, and they connect themselves in colonies. And the whole underside of a ship can become festooned with these barnacles, and the barnacles produce tremendous drag on the hull of a ship that slows it down in the water. For us, our barnacles are all of the stuff that we learned that was wrong, all of the counterproductive behavior patterns, unhealthy values, inappropriate senses of obligation to do things that work against us. You get the idea, right? It's the entanglements that we've acquired, that we've gained through exposure to society at large, particularly a not so healthy society, mass entertainment media that care only about making a dollar and not about the well-being of the people who partake of those entertainment media, the educational system, which is heavily biased in favor of a capitalistic, profit-driven society that does not take into account the effects of the various actions that are used to acquire profits. Easy example is the oil industry, where oil spills occur and it's considered par for the course. It's considered a cost of doing business. Mass entertainment media, where the techniques used in editing have chopped the time between changes of image to less than a second. So quick flashes of images which prevent a person from feeling and perceiving deeply what's being shown. So it cultivates short attention span and superficiality. You see, and what happens is the person becomes conditioned to have a short attention span, not to exercise their intention because of a political system that doesn't listen. They become defeated and apathetic. So intention gets called into question. Memory, distorted memory, that comes from the distortions in, let's say, the mass media representations of the news. And imagination, getting back again to a degenerated mass entertainment media system. So it degrades the intelligences of people. So doing the kinds of procedures that I've been teaching enables a person to surface all of that kind of conditioning in themselves progressively and to clean it up. When that happens, they operate more intelligently, they produce better results in life, they affect others much more positively, and they have a freer, lighter experience of life because the barnacles of their life have been cleaned off by their partaking of these procedures.
I can really say yes to that. I feel my life much more less less difficult.
Much more or less difficult, yes.
More or less.
Less difficult, no, more joyous. You know, I don't get crushed down from stress anymore so much as I did before. This is one thing. Then there is here Monica. She says, Lawrence, thanks, and I love your work. It's an excellent process of self-knowledge. This for giving a testimonial to you. And here is Carrea, says, greetings all. I agree that the repetition of addressing the same problems is not working.
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old, yeah. And I can reassure you what Lawrence is teaching. It's nothing alike what we have done so far. I mean, I have done 15 years or longer self-development courses and whatever, and some were very good. But this, at the first moment, you think, oops, what is that? And then you go in, and with the explanations which Lawrence gives, you slowly begin to understand what you are doing. And really, I'm really so grateful that I'm part of that. And we were hosting the Wisdom Factory, mainly me because I'm the tech guy. We're hosting the last course, which has ended only last week. And Lois intends to begin a new course in October. But first of all, we would like to invite you for a free webinar where we will talk again about, you can ask questions more effectively. We will do it on Webinar Jam. You see the link here. bit.ly http://bit.ly/wisdom gold, GOLD, and a 1 at the end. Wisdom Gold 1. I think you can remember that easily.
We had a slight handicap there because on our screen it's displayed backwards.
Yeah, because I forgot to switch it over. So we had to an exercise to read from the other way. So yeah, we will hold a free webinar, and we would love if you could invite your friends to that and share this link, bit.ly Wisdom Gold 1, with them. It will be in the 7th of October at the same time. And you can register there, and your friends can register there. And please, please, please share it, because it's really worthwhile. It is different. It is completely different. And although Tom says it hadn't worked for him yet, I'm sure if he now sees all the replay videos and goes into it and really does it and listen to the explanations, because only after a while you really get it, what it is about. First you think, really, it's so strange. I thought that.
Oh yeah, it is strange, but in the best kind of strange. Okay, original, unique.
Yeah, because you think this is at first I thought it's a play with words, but it's not really. It is, but it's not really. It's about also the feeling in what you feel, what you perceive in your body, and then what happens. For me, at least, it happened from a certain point on that when Lawrence guided us through this. A practice, and it's not only the release practice. There are other practices which at the first moment are much more complicated, and afterwards you find yourself as if you have done meditation, an hour of meditation or something like that. And if not for anything else, if you have problems with meditating, normally sitting on the cushion and getting quiet, and so
this is a back door.
This is a back door to meditation too.
It takes the work out of it. It just happens to you as the practice continues.
And Lawrence, we invite the people now to the free webinar where they can sign up. But on your lower third, there is another link which where you have written a written description of what it is about. And also, you read it, you still won't understand it well, because this is one of these things when you say, how does honey taste? And unless you have tasted honey ever in your life, you don't know, really. And something like this is with what we are saying here and what we will read in the text. You will have an impression, but you will understand it only if you have really experienced it yourself. So, Lawrence, we will show you on the screen, and you can talk a little bit about the higher levels of the courses you are planning, where they go. I mean, they go to change the world. You have already explained the reason why this can happen, but how will you structure that? And in the meantime, people read his bit.ly link, and this is the written. And I will post it also in the comment stream for sure. Okay.
Well, all of the courses, and I'll enumerate what those are shortly, have the same underlying format, which involves the opportunity for live coaching with me during our class sessions. And you can see in the window that you're looking at, there's what's called a film strip at the bottom. This is a place where people can come in to be live on camera and microphone and I can coach people through the procedures during the course of our class session. I have hoped that people who are having the greatest difficulty would be the ones to come in so that I can coach you personally and get you through sticky places. And what I've seen mostly in the previous courses, people come in who were wanting to share some experience of themselves, which is good. It's fine. That's part of what it's for. But it's my intention to coach the difficult situations to get you through them so that you have success in the process. That said, there are a number of different procedures. The first one is called the gold key release, and it's the entry-level procedure that gets you familiar with the feeling of having your habitual states that bring about discomfort or difficulty dissolve and disappear. And they occur in seconds during the procedure. It's not something that takes a long time. When you go through the final step of allowing the condition you're working on to disappear, the dissolution occurs in 10 to 20 seconds usually. That depends, of course, on the proper setup. And so the gold key release is the procedure we use to get you used to the feeling of dissolving your own limitations. And the first section of the gold key release consists of my training you in being able to do that for yourself using particular, I call them items, focuses of attention that get at the limitations that you might experience in doing the gold key release itself. And I call this forging the tool. Then the second section of the gold key release, we take on personal issues in your life, and we don't just do it on camera, and it's never disclosed because it's not necessary. You're doing it all internally, but you'll be working on different aspects of your life, and then on a larger scale with groups that have an effect on your life. And such groups could be anything from political parties to religious institutions or educational institutions. See what I'm getting at in terms of groups. The next level after that has to do with world level influences. And this includes such things as deforestation or massive political movements or ecological changes, large scale global or planetary effects. And the final section has to do with processes that affect all living beings. And the purpose of that kind of expansion is to give you facility or ability in dealing with whatever comes up in your life and to get you thinking larger. Why think larger? Because we have large scale crises converging. And if we can get a group of individuals who are all attending to those, we'll be working on the effects in ourselves and indirectly affecting the larger process. There's something we haven't touched on in this talk having to do with local and non-local consciousness. I'm only putting a marker up for those subjects. I'm not going to go into those now because they constitute what we call a rabbit hole. Right? Okay. Then after that, we'll be teaching a procedure called the wish-fulfilling gem. The wish-fulfilling gem is a wisdom procedure that clears the way for your life to give you what you particularly feel you need while giving you wisdom about it. And wisdom has to do with your capacity to maintain balance in the midst of the condition that you've generated in your life. Then after the wish-fulfilling gem, we have two procedures, one called the spell maker, the other called the spell breaker. And these are much quicker ways of dealing with the limitations that you've acquired or inherited and the ability to be creative in life. And it's possible to do once you've gotten proficiency in the earlier stages. The later stages are more direct and they require greater proficiency and less setup needed. Then after that, we have some deeper wisdom practices, one called the thunderclap and the other the lightning bolt, which again are procedures that go very quickly. They enable you to dissolve or to generate states of mind. And finally, what I call the King Kong of procedures, called the middle way memory matrix ritual, which is very useful for getting at very deep, very encrusted, entrenched habit patterns and unconscious states of mind. And that particular procedure incorporates many of the earlier procedures in a gigantic, well-integrated, and extremely potent procedure that produces major changes in your life in a short amount of time. So that's a general overview of the offerings, but we start next with the Gold Key Release because, frankly, it's the easiest to learn and it's the entry-level procedure that prepares you for everything that is to come.
Yeah, thank you for the overview. And we will start a second course, how do you say, course of the second level soon with the people who have accomplished the first level. And we will let you know by email who has done the first level already. So it is very important to first do the first level because the second level without the first, I mean, it's logical, isn't it? I would like to bring up a comment from Kaike.
It's quite something.
Yeah, you begin to read.
Hi, I've used Gold Key Release to help to clarify several emotionally stuck issues, some of which have been stuck since childhood. Still work to be done, but I'm really impressed by the procedure. It doesn't require accepting any weird belief
systems, and this is true. It just clarifies how one actually personally operates already. This realization, at least in my experience, allows one to change even subconscious invisible assumptions that are otherwise difficult to address. Highly recommendable. Great, Kaike. This is really great. You were another one of the very faithful followers. Yeah.
So,
yeah, with that, Lawrence, we are sort of at the end. We have 3 more minutes. Let's recapitulate a little. Recapitulate, yeah. So on 7th of October, there will be another free webinar, which leads into the repetition of the first level course. And this is for you. You have already heard a lot of the information, but please help us to get the word out because really, don't you want to have a better world? So, and this is one thing. And this is here my bit.ly link, which you see on my lower third. Instead of the lower third, which Lawrence has, you find a written description, and I think you can already opt in for the course there. But it's not yet necessary. You can if you want. We will do that after the webinar, and we will be present. You know, have you ever seen the new platform Blab? I think we should do an after Blab with these people who are here. We will organize, if you stay here on this event page, I will post a link in about 5 minutes, and there you can come in if you have a Twitter account. And it's really easy to go into the Hangout interface. Oh, it's not a Hangout, it's a different video interface, let's say. You just click on join, take the seat or something is written there, and you are in. It's not as complicated as on Hangouts. No. That's it. Lawrence, last word?
Yes, okay. We've been talking about changing the world. I want to make it clear that changing the world through these procedures is an experiment. This is something that has never been done quite this way. Its closest likeness is the Maharishi effect, in which they found that people meditating in a city seemed to cause a reduction in crime in the city immediately following that period. We're working in a similar way, but it is experimental. The effects that have been described are actual, but the larger scale effects that are possible have barely been explored, and that would be the experiment that we can conduct by using these procedures. So that's my final word on this.
Good. And my final word is you are invited to participate in this experiment. The more we are, the more we can work together to do it, the more probable it will be that it works. Okay, I will set up the Blab event, and we see you there in about 5 minutes, and you can talk with us.
Yes,
Okay,
come on back.
bye-bye.
All right, then.
Bye.